Here's another recently extinct animal that you probably haven't heard of, the southern gastric-brooding frog. This is the southern gastric-brooding frog. It was endemic to a couple tiny areas in Australia. And if you take a quick look up here, you realize that there is a second, smaller frog coming out of the mouth of that larger frog. So as with all gastric-brooding frogs, they have a very interesting method of kind of incubating their eggs. So after the eggs have been fertilized, they will eat them and incubate them inside their stomach and brood them until they hatch and are ready to emerge, hence the gastric stomach brooding process. And then they just kind of eject. So that is with all species of gastric brooding frogs, not just the southern ones, but the southern ones are the ones that are extinct, unfortunately, for now. The population of these frogs were kind of noted as to being very, very low in 1976, and in 1979 there was quite a large cold snap in Australia, which killed off most of the remaining population. This frog was last seen in the wild in 1981, and the last captive individual died in 1983. So now they are functionally extinct in the wild, and in captivity there is no more of them living. However, there are quite a few preserved specimens, and so there is currently a de-extinction process going on in order to try to revive these frogs. There is still viable DNA in a bunch of these preserved specimens, and by using a cloning method, the DNA from the southern gastric brooding frogs has been injected into the eggs and embryos of the northern gastric brooding frogs in an attempt to make a functionally identical kind of clone population of the southern ones to re-release and hopefully establish a new wild population. As of right now, the process is still ongoing, and there hasn't been much success in any individuals surviving to develop into an actual tadpole, but it's a relatively new kind of program, and there is still research being done, so hopefully after a few tweaks and a few more trials, they will get a viable batch of tadpoles, which will grow into a viable adult population, which can hopefully be captive bred and get their own kind of egg situation going. Egg situation going without the need of extensive cloning, and then eventually will be re-released into the area to establish a new wild population.